I'm overwhelmed. It feels like there's so many seeds to plant, so many flower bulbs, so many flower seeds, and I just don't know where to start. I can officially say summer is over and it's time to start thinking about all of the bulbs that need to be planted now in order to come up for springtime. It's also time to start thinking about all of the veggies and the cool weather crops like lettuce, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, things like beetroot, leek. All of these things can go into the ground. Potatoes around us can go into the ground because we don't get much frost. Garlic is also a week away from April, so I'm going to plant them now. I don't care if it's early. Hopefully that doesn't come back to bite me. And I also have lots of potato slips that have been needing to go into the ground for quite a while. I've rooted them in some water and I'll be planting those in as well. It's really exciting because last year I actually uncovered or dug up all of my root crops, so all my beautiful flowers and blooms, and I'm planning on putting them in different places this year, so I'm definitely excited to see how it all grows. I've got ranunculus, I've got hyacinths, lots of different types of daffodils and jonquils, tulips, all the things. Irises, I'm super excited for the irises. And of course, even though I have all of these saved up from last year, I did also go and buy some more. So before we go and plant everything into the ground and figure out where on earth everything's going to go, I wanted to kind of talk you through all of the different varieties of flowers and vegetables that I'll be planting during the season of autumn and winter time. So hopefully if you need some inspiration, you'll get it here today. All right, where to start? I guess we'll start by looking at all of the bulbs that I'll be planting. So bulbs need to go in now. They'll overwinter during the cool months. They'll stay in the ground and kind of hibernate, cool off, which is part of their process. And then come springtime, once the soil temperatures warm up and the sun shines more, they'll come up. So like I said, I dug up a lot of mine from last year and kind of put them aside so that I could make sure I knew where to plant it this year. I'm gonna have to refer back to some videos to figure out exactly what my plan is, but anyways, let's see if I remember. So I tried to kind of keep it all separate and I left it in my pantry to make sure that nothing went off. So these here are my daffodils and these were the big yellow variety. They also came up early and I wrote this all on a little sticky note to help remind me what I'm planning on doing this time round. So I did end up leaving the dirt on them, which you're not supposed to, and I was a bit worried about what that might do, whether it would rot. Luckily though, they all look pretty great. No damage. Some of them have multiplied, which is great. So super excited for those. What else? We have a massive bag of something. Alright, what have we got here? I think these are more daffodils as well. They kind of look like it, don't they? Again, they look pretty amazing. Small white with a yellow center daffodils, and they came up early as well. So I kind of want to plant all my daffodils together and just mix them up. And this kind of helps me just to know exactly where I want to set them. So I want to make sure that all of the daffodils are towards the back so that once they die off, the green foliage will stay there, but then the new flowers will be ahead of them at the front where they can shine without all of this ugly green foliage there. I have so many of those. I think they multiplied like crazy. All right, in this one we have, I reckon these are my tulips. Oh no, daffodils, small yellow with an orange center. They weren't my favorite, but they were still cute. They came up pretty early as well. And again, they did okay with how I've stored them. Yeah, I reckon they'll be fine. Cool, so it's like all the daffodils, we want to kind of plant them together. Ranunculus and irises, I'm going to plant around the same area because they seem to come up at the same time. I think some of the irises came up early, but it doesn't matter. Oh, okay. What else do we have? So these ones, it doesn't look like I named them, which is a bit frustrating, but they multiplied like crazy and They have little bits growing off them now, which is interesting. So we'll see how they go. I can't remember what these are called. I'll have to look it up. But I think they had really beautiful flowers. So I'll just keep them to the side for now. I can't believe I didn't label them. And then these, I think, were my tulips and irises. So I guess to make this video a little bit more interesting, I'm going to plant out all of the bulbs first, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about the veggies next, and hopefully the chickens don't get into any of it. Yes, I'm talking about you. Yes, I'm talking about you. Originally, first, I thought I would be planting them in the same spot as last year, but I think I'm kind of going to spread them out around the garden. Again, like last year, I want to make sure that they're planted in places that I can see them easily, and so that they can really shine for me to enjoy, not just for others. So I am going to plant some in this back garden here, especially because there won't be a lot of veggies growing there. I might plant some over here. Not sure, we'll see. Definitely going to plant some at the front where we had them last year, although the chickens keep getting into that area, so we'll see. And my marigolds are still doing great. And then one last spot I'm planning on planting them is the big garden. So in this bed that we had the tomatoes in, I'm going to do a line of garlic in the center because they'll be there for a long time. And then probably do 2 lines of flowers and then have some peas going up the trellis. In this garden bed, I think I'll do some potatoes because we can dig quite deep in. I'll make sure that we can. This probably could have something, but it's still living. This bed, I'm probably going to have broccoli, cauliflower, and all of those brassica plants we're going to have in here. So I'll have a tunnel going over them, and I'll most likely successionally plant them. Then over here we'll have maybe garlic and some flowers as well to go along with the flowers at the back. The very end bed we could probably get away with doing, I think it has potatoes in it already, but we could turn that into a flower bed as well. Leeks will go along with the sweet potatoes here. This had leeks last year, so perhaps, not sure. As I said, it feels like there's so many things to plant, and just figuring out where everything's going to go is a bit overwhelming. So I'm probably just going to start and put things there, and then I'll catch you guys up with any changes that I make. So these are the ones that I saved from last season compared to the ones that came in this pack. Oh, what a big difference. So the ranunculus I'm going to plant alongside the irises, which look like this, which means all of these ones. And they have multiplied so well. Oh, I'm just overthinking it. I don't know what to do. Just plant. Just plant. Alright, where we had all of the flowers last year, I think I'm going to dedicate at least the back row to daffodils. I do want to have calendula and marigold really growing here for the lip balms that I'm selling through Ethical Wonder. So I don't want to plant all of this out with the bulbs, which is why I think I'm finding this so difficult. I think I do also want to plant some of the bulbs in the strawberry bed because the strawberries aren't growing really well around here. So I might as well make use of that and really make a spectacular feature of the flowers both over there and over here, which is our view every time we walk to our cars. Hopefully this goes well. I ended up having 79 daffodils, mixed variety. Most of them were small, like the small-headed daffodils. Most of them were the small-headed daffodils, but to make it a little bit less overwhelming, I remembered last year that I spread them all out before digging them into the ground, so I knew exactly where everything was going to go, and that's exactly what I did now. In this next line I put what I think are the tulips and perhaps the black pearl lily, which were really beautiful last time, so hopefully that's what these are. But I can't remember, I'll have to look back at my pictures. And then in that last row I'm going to put my calendula flowers, so I'm going to leave it for the time being. I hope that's the right decision to make. Maybe I won't do that. Help. I think I will. Alright, in the last line I'm going to put the calendula flowers. Hope for the best. Expect the worst. Listen to me. Alright, so I've been thinking about how to do my ranunculus, and in those garden beds where I originally thought I would have ranunculus and iris planted together, I've planted out the iris and there's quite a lot of them, and there's other things growing there like carrots and lettuces, as well as all of my perennial herbs and veggies as well. So I think it's quite full as is, but that big garden bed at the very end there, right now that's got beans, it's got tomatoes coming to an end, and it's also got sweet potatoes. But I think what would be really beautiful is if every trellis in that garden bed had sweet peas or sugar snap peas, and then all the rest of the bed was just ranunculus flowers, which are these really beautiful, romantic, almost rose-like kind of flowers, and they come in all kinds of colours. So I think that's what I'm going to do, but right now the sun's come out with fury. It's been hot, it's been cold the last few days, and the sun's decided to come out now while I'm planting, of course. So I'm going to go take a little break, and as soon as the sun goes behind a cloud again, I'll come out and I'll finish off that bed with all of the ranunculus flowers just planted throughout, and then maybe I'll start planting some peas and see if they come up or not yet. So I'm just dawdling around my garden, having a look at what I can be planting where and what is growing, and I found this little garlic that decided to sprout itself. Now these are all far too little to eat in my opinion. Normally you would plant garlic that is a lot larger into the ground so you get bigger bulbs. So what most people don't know or don't really let garlic show them is that it has a beautiful pom-pom-like flower, just like most alliums do, like chives or spring onions. So I'm going to take this little volunteer garlic and plant it amongst the iris plants. I think it'll make a really beautiful little feature during that season. But finding plants like this that have sprouted is a really good first indication when it's time to plant certain things like garlic. So the fact that the volunteers are coming up is a pretty good sign that it's time to plant your garlic. So I just went and I planted out a bunch of sugar snap climbing peas, and as I mentioned before, I did it along all of the trellises. I made sure to add some compost in places that were a little bit overrun by wood chips, and I guess we'll just see if it's time for the peas to come up or not. But while I was there was some beautiful cosmos, so I picked some. Cutting it back the other week was a great idea, and I'm getting lots of new blooms, which is really exciting, especially as the flower numbers are starting to calm down. It gives the bees something to go to. Now that sun keeps coming out and it's so hot and brutal, so I'm kind of just doing this in parts because just being out in the sun is awful. I've hated it all summer long and we've hardly had any hot days. I thought maybe I'd sit down with you guys and talk you through some of the vegetables that I'm going to be planting over autumn and winter. I think I'm going to make up a little seed mix like I did with my carrots and spinach and spring onions. I'm going to make a little seed mix and then be sprinkling it every now and again to make sure that I'm successionally planting. I'll probably do this with the brassicas, and then I'll make a little bunch up for things like carrots and spring onions and lettuces as well. My goal this year though is to use up all of my seeds. There's no point of taking them with me on the bus because we won't be able to keep them for long. So I think getting them into the ground, using them up, preserving what I can, giving it as Christmas gifts if we can't eat it, is just going to be the best way to go forward. So let me talk you through all of the veggies and the flowers that I'll be planting. Alright, so I guess I'll start with the veggies, and there is so much that I'll be planting. Excuse my very dirty hands, you can tell I've been planting alongside things. Okay, let's start with the most obvious culprit, potatoes. We don't get frosts around here, or not much of our garden gets frost, so planting potatoes, they actually do best during these cold months. So I'll be planting my potatoes pretty soon. These are just a variety from the market. I like to get the ones that people don't buy anymore because they've sprouted, and then I plant them instead. Speaking of potatoes, I'll also be planting all my sweet potato slips. I already have heaps in the garden, but these are extra ones. My sweet potato just keeps giving and giving, so I might as well keep growing and growing. Most of my veggies are going to go in the big garden beds. I might still plant a few out here, but it'll mostly be carrots and lettuce that I'm planting in these garden beds, and flowers. Now this is exciting. It is garlic season, as you've seen, and I made sure to save some of our biggest garlic bulbs from last season to plant out this season. I'm not going to sprout them in water or anything like that. I find that they grow pretty easily just like this, so it'll be just a matter of separating out all the bulbs, which I might do in a moment. I'll go inside and rest and do that. But I also ended up getting some seed garlics from the local market. We've got a friend running a stall there, so he was really generous to sell some of his biggest bulbs to us, and I'll be planting these out as well. I got so much garlic, and I know I'm just going to keep planting more and more. I really loved making garlic braids last season, so I'll definitely be storing it that way again. Okay, now that we've got the most obvious out of the way, let's talk some more seedlings. So it's going to be time to plant onions, spring onions, as well as big bulb onions. So I've got red legs, which is a variety of like a shallot / spring onion. Then I have shallots from Whitbird Environmental. These grew super fast in my garden and were delicious, so I'll be planting more of those out. I did have this red Holland, North Holland red onions, which they didn't sprout last season, but I'll try again this time round. And then these brown onions did really, really well, so I'll definitely be planting more of those. Did I just get bitten by an ant? How rude. Anyways, I'll also be planting lots of leeks. I ended up doing this recipe with all of our leeks, which was just a confit leek in the oven, and it was so easy to make and it was so delicious. So I'm definitely going to be growing lots and lots more leeks this season. Last season was really the first time that we grew it, so I was a bit skeptical, but this season I'm sold and I'll be planting those. They'll probably be part of my little seed mix, them along with the spring onions and shallots. I don't think it's time for beans anymore. I feel like in the past only peas were growing for me at this time of the year, so that's the only things I'm going to plant. I might experiment with putting some beans into the ground, but more likely than not it'll just be peas from now on. Now, of course, a part of my little mix is going to be full of carrots, and I've been successionally sowing so far. I'm sticking to my goal, and I've been planting Kuroda carrots as well as the baby carrots from Whitbird Environmental. So those are the two carrots in my mix, and they're coming up pretty quickly. I'll have to show you the ones that are growing. Now, in our household, we're not big fans of beetroot, and what I have grown, like I'm still preserving last season's beetroot. Like we really don't eat much. So I might plant out a few of ours since we have them, but I won't be dedicating too much space to beetroot. So that might be just a once-off type of thing. Greens. Greens seem to kind of like either grow or not grow around here. I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong, but I continue to try grow them, and we at least manage to have 1 or 2 plants that we can pick the leaves off all winter long. So I'm planting some pak choi. I'm also planting some spinach. I've got a few different varieties. There's this one that is the black glove spinach. I have so many seeds that are not labeled. It's so bad. So bad. Yeah, I guess that's it. Where are my lettuce seeds? How strange that I don't have any lettuce. Oh, I guess we're planting pak choi and spinach, and that's it. They'll go in the little mix that I'll be planting successionally throughout the season. Now the fun part, let's talk brassicas, and you can tell by how many seeds I have that I am all over the brassicas family. So we have lots of different types of broccoli. So I've got a Di Ciccio broccoli. We've got green sprouting calabrese. I'm probably butchering all the names of these. I have a purple sprouting early broccoli, which that's the one that I've kept in my garden to see if it sprouts again. It didn't do too well in the garden last time, but I'll still plant it again. I'm going to plant out some new plants of Brussels sprouts, and they should probably go into the ground like ASAP, so we'll get onto that. I've got some kohlrabi as well. And I bought some cabbage, which I'm going to give a go to. I've never had much success with cabbage, so we'll hope for the best. This is the early Jersey Wakefield variety, and we'll just see how it goes. I also did grab a few seeds from my friend Anne while she was over. So I think we got a couple of different varieties of broccoli or cabbage. Silly me, didn't name them or anything. I have a Chinese broccoli, jade variety. I have this one, which is not labeled. Thank you, Diane, for making our job harder. And that's it. That's the brassicas. So those are all the veggies that I'll be planting this autumn and winter. I do also have my seed subscription with Whitbird Environmental. So they're going to be sending me 3 packets of seedlings that grow really well on the south coast. And I'll be planting those into my garden. So this time round, they've sent me coriander. Amazing, the more the better. Turnips, never tried them before, so that'll be an experiment. And radishes as well. Oh, that's one thing that I forgot to purchase, radishes, so that's going to be perfect. This is a daikon variety, which are the long white ones. Lots of plantings. You can see why I'm trying to kind of dedicate a big day to it, but also preparing myself to be doing some successional planting. Probably should have put those in water. Okay, and I thought I'd also talk you through some of the flowers I got. And for some reason I went a little flower crazy this season. I wanted to buy a lot of really autumn coloured flowers like orange and burgundy, some really rich varieties of flowers just to decorate our homestead and make it look really beautiful. So these are the varieties that I got. So I got the Snapdragon Tetra Mix, Delphinium Butterfly Blue, you know I love blue flowers, Delphinium Pacific Giants Mix, Carnation Dwarf Fragrance Mix, Wallflower Fire King, Hollyhock Queenie Mix. I bought some lavender, so I want to be growing some more lavender, so we'll try propagate that together. Everlasting Daisy Salmon Rose, which for some reason I got 2 packets of that, not sure why. Dianthus Carmine Red, Stock Giant Column White and Christmas, Sweet William Scarlet Beauty, and Status Twilight Lilac. And all of these are going to be perennial plants. So the original garden beds that I have behind me, I'm probably going to turn them into a perennial flower garden rather than having veggies there. Having 2 spots for veggies just doesn't make sense. So I would rather dedicate this space for those. And you know, I'll still intermix things like lettuce and carrots. The herb bed will remain there, but I don't want to be going to 2 places every morning. It is getting a bit annoying. But I did also get some bulbs to make it even easier to plant lots of beautiful colour in the garden. I got some Spiraxis bulbs. I also got the anemone poppies, and as you saw before, I got the ranunculus mix that will go along with what I already have. So those are going to be stunning in the garden, if you ask me. Oh, and I almost forgot to say that all of these little seeds, I'm going to try propagate them in soil trays rather than directly sowing them into the garden. I will direct sow the bigger bulbs, but those little ones, they kind of get lost in the garden out there. So it makes sense to be able to transplant them when they're ready. Okay, we're gonna go plant the potatoes in the garden where we planted the irises. My best advice with potatoes is just to dig them into the ground as far down as you can go. Drop them in and cover. That's it. Yeah, but you can see how deep and rich this soil is. Like, there's no better spot for potatoes. Perfect. Is that my loofah plants finally coming up? Any loofah fans? That sun is brutal and I'm getting hungry. I think the last things I'm going to plant are the sweet potato slips because I already know the bed it's going into. And then I'll plant out the calendula again because I know the bed it's going into. I'm going to leave the flowers for another day. I'm going to leave all the brassicas and the carrots, the things that I need to plant into trays for another day. But you guys know my plans, so stick around and you can join me as I plant them all.